Welcome to What's New. And tonight we have Mr. Mueller with us. And Iris, tell him what Mr. Mueller is going to be talking about.
Well, I just don't really know. I think the 4th of July. Before we do that, though, Mr. Oaks, the Oaks Furniture, home furnishing that's opening up, he had a family thing to take care of, so he'll be back later. Yes. So we have Mr. Mueller is going to talk about the 4th of July and everything else under the sun.
Well, I'm here to talk about the 4th on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and talk about events that will be happening on that day. Earlier this year, I was doing some research on what was called the Grand Army of the Republic, which was a fraternal organization for the Civil War, after the Civil War, and I was getting ready for a Memorial Day talk. And I found out that the GAR back in the 1880s and 1890s regularly had 4th of July picnics on Maxwell Hill, just up the road from where Mary Ann lives. And so that got me interested in doing a little research on the 4th of July and what happened in St. Genevieve in past years. And I also noticed that in past years, our Memorial Days, or Decoration Days as they were called in the early days, how much more we'd have parades and things like that, and they were celebrated a lot more. And typically now it's a day off of work and a picnic with your family, and those are important. And we're blessed that we're able to have a day off of work and picnics. And I think we have to sometimes look back and think about what got us here. And so we were sitting around in coffee one morning, we decided, well, we need to do something a little more about 4th of July and make it a little more patriotic like it used to be. And talk with Dina and Eric, and so we decided this year to add an event. The Chamber's still going to have their fireworks in the evening. The municipal band's going to play on the Valley Desert at 7:30, and they have great patriotic music for that. But we decided to do something like they used to do, and so at 12 noon on July 4th, I think it's a Friday, at the courthouse steps, we're going to start with a ringing of church bells, which is something that they did in America to celebrate the 4th of July. We'll then have the VFW post the colors and have a brief welcome. And then do the Pledge of Allegiance, which is appropriate. We usually start most of our meetings here in town with that. And Eric Bennett's wife, Nicole's going to sing the Star Spangled Banner. And if you haven't heard Nicole sing, she's
very, very good.
Very, very good. And then I think I'm going to read parts of the Declaration of Independence.
I thought that was really neat when I read that.
Yeah, I'm not going to read the full thing. I'm going to read it in an abridged thing, because when they start listing the 27 grievances against King George.
May take a while.
It takes a while, so I'll do an abbreviated version and maybe talk a little bit about the Declaration of Independence. And then we'll have a salute fired by the VFW, our Civil War group, and our Colonial Militia group. So we'll have 3 generations. A few short talks by dignitaries, and then trying to get Nicole to sing a couple more patriotic songs, and then we'll do the closing. And we'd like to have everybody come down, bring a lawn chair. We'll have little flags for people to wave.
They're going to block off the street?
We'll block off the streets, I think from 11 to 1, something like that. It shouldn't take that long, but just a little gathering and kind of take it back to some of the traditional things. In case of inclement weather, we'll hold it in the Catholic Church without the firing of guns. I don't think Father Dennis would like that.
I don't think Father would appreciate the
No.
guns going.
Maybe I can get him to incense a little bit.
You can open the door and fire him out.
But we'll just do it there. So rain or shine, we're going to have at 12 o'clock, we're going to start having a little bit of old-time patriotic 4th of July here.
That'd be great.
And then at 7:30, the municipal band will be at the Valley Desert, and at dusk.
They're playing at the desert? Why not up in the park?
I'm not sure. They did that last year.
Are
I
the
guess
fireworks in the park?
The fireworks will be at dusk on Leon.
Leon's Field?
Field South, I believe that is. Yanks South, excuse me.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's where they
normally is, yeah.
I think they did it there last year. but that'll be good. The chamber is still accepting donations for the fireworks. If you'd like to give a little something, stop by the chamber office and.
You used to go around and collect for that, didn't you, Marianne?
Yeah, you
Many,
ran it
many
for years.
Yeah.
About 25,
Yeah.
26 years, yeah.
I don't know, Chipper must have been pretty young when he ran it before you did, didn't
Yeah, he was just a baby then. His mother pushed him in a stroller.
he?
Don't punish me, God.
Well, can I talk a little bit about history and?
Sure,
and-
tell
and
me
Yes,
about,
will do.
that'd be
The
great.
floor is yours.
The first mention I found of 4th of July in St. Genevieve is in 1811, 200 years ago.
Really?
Now, when the 4th of July or the Declaration of Independence was signed, it was actually approved on July 2nd. Or, yes, it was approved written on July 2nd and voted on. They signed it a little bit later, not until August. And not everybody that voted for it signed it. There were 2 people that had already went back home, and they didn't sign it. There's about 25 copies that are in existence. And the official one is located in the National Archives in Washington, D.C., right next to the Constitution.
Oh, my.
And all of the stone around the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution came from our marble quarry. It's just 7 miles from here
Are you
at
kidding?
River of Oz.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Our marble was quite renowned. There's 5 different colors. It's in many buildings. But in the National Archives, a few years back, they were wanting to redo it, and they were looking for more stone. And we knew we had some down there by the creek, those big blocks that
Yeah.
sit there, but they found some in Tennessee. But it is St. Genevieve marble
Oh, my
that
word.
protects the Constitution and the Declaration.
Isn't that amazing?
So if you're ever in Washington, D.C., stop by the National Archives. It's a very moving place to be able to read these original documents. But the people, when that's all going on in 1776, we're Spanish here. We still spoke French, and we were not really much on independence kind of things. We didn't like the British. They were across the river, and the French thought the British were vagabonds and thieves and knife people and shooters, and just didn't think much of them. Really what it was, they were impinging on the French traders' territory, so they didn't like that. And we did kind of get involved with the War of Independence after the Declaration. The first kind of thing that happened across the river, Kaskaskia. George Rogers Clark brought his what's called Rogers Rangers over from Virginia to capture this area around here. And there was a priest over there, Father Gibault, who convinced the French to surrender to the Americans without a fight. And then they went up and captured Kaskaskia, or Cahokia. Well, Father Gibault also served here in St. Genevieve as our parish priest for a while, and he's known as the Patriot Priest. That was his nom.
I read that somewhere. Where in the world did I read that? I was going back someplace and I read that he was.
He was the Patriot Priest. I think he's buried in Vincennes now, is where he ended up. The other thing that happened during the American Revolution, in May of 1780, word came that the British were going to attack St. Louis, which was a Spanish territory. And Spain and England didn't get along. France and England didn't get along. So the St. Genevieve militia, 60 people, went up to St. Louis in early May. And there was a battle up there. It's called the Battle of Fort San Carlos, happened on May 30th, 1780. And one of the St. Genevieve citizen soldiers got killed. And it was probably our first
War casualty.
war casualty.
Oh, my goodness.
And a number of the people stayed up there until September and then came back to St. Genevieve. And that is honored annually up in St. Louis, the Battle of Fort
Is
San
that the
Carlos.
one they have on the riverfront up there?
It's very,
That-
it's not exactly on the riverfront. It's probably more down by the old courthouse a little bit. There was a big stone tower that Shudo built, and but it was our first venture into protecting what was to become the United States. But let's get back to that 1811.
Okay.
This one was so neat, and I'm going to read some of this. It says, and this was the Missouri Gazette was the first newspaper in Missouri. It started in 1808, and this is 1811. It said, pursuant to previous arrangement, a large number of mechanics, those were the people that ran shops and stuff, the tradesmen, and respectable citizens, I'm not sure there's a of the town of St. Genevieve, met at 12 o'clock on a high eminence back of Dr. Elliott's, where an arbor had been prepared for their accommodations. Now, Dr. Elliott's is down by the Gier de Fête Park, Moses
Yes,
Austin. It's
yes.
the shingled house.
Right.
And it goes on to say, at 2 o'clock, the company sat down to an elegant repast provided for the occasion, after which the following toasts were drunk, accompanied by a firing of a 9-pounder, 1 gun to each toast. Now, a 9-pounder is a big gun.
I was gonna say,
And the toast, there were 18 of them.
Oh, they were all inebriated.
So, to the day we celebrate from the earliest period of history, certain days of festivities and celebration have been observed, but none so glorious and beneficial to mankind as the 4th of July. That was followed by a toast and a reading of Ode to the 4th of July, a poem. The second toast was to the heroes of '76, followed by singing of Yankee Doodle Dandy. The third to George Washington, and the Washington March was played. The fourth to the United States, 3 cheers, and another toast. The fifth to Thomas Jefferson, 3 cheers. James Madison, 3 cheers. Number 7, George Clinton, he was the vice president, he only got 2 cheers. Commerce got 4 cheers. And then domestic manufacturing was number 9 toast, and they sang Speed the Plow, which is a song I'm not familiar with. Number 10 was a toast to arts and sciences, followed by a reading of the poem Ode to Science. Number 11 was to the militia of the United States. And after this toast was drank, the company rose, formed a chain around the table by uniting their hands, in which position they sung the first verse of Hail Columbia. Number 12 was the American Eagle, sung to the tune Bluebird. Number 13, the Navy, 2 cheers. Number 14, the Territory of Missouri, 2 cheers. By that time, we're not a state yet. In 1811, we're the Territory of Louisiana. Well, I guess 1811, we became the Territory of Missouri, so it was just when that was all happening. Number 15 was the Governor of Louisiana, 2 cheers. Our sister territories, which were all over the place, there was a number of them, like 8, got 3 cheers. Spanish America, which was still fighting against the British, 3 cheers. And by this time, I guess they were a little inebriated. But they weren't dumb. The last toast was to the fair ladies, and 5 cheers.
oh my God.
Oh.
And our territory at that time was all the way up into Florida, wasn't it?
Well,
I mean,
actually, there were 2 territories after the Louisiana Purchase. There was the territory of Upper Louisiana and the territory of Lower Louisiana. And we were kind of the upper one. And we were that until about 1811, 1812, when we became the Territory of Missouri. Now, there were 5 counties or districts before 1812, counties afterwards. There was St. Charles, St. Louis, St. Genevieve, which went from the Merrimack River down to the Apple Creek. And then there was Cape Girardeau and New Madrid, and New Madrid went all the way into northern Arkansas. So those were the first 5
And
counties.
we were way over into the lead belt.
Oh,
weren't
yeah.
we?
Actually, out of our county, St. Francis, part of Jefferson, Washington, Perry, part of Iron, I think, and Madison all came out of the original St. Genevieve County. So
That's a pretty good sized county then.
it was. I mean, they were all
Now,
very
wasn't Florissant included in?
No,
in that?
the Merrimack.
Where were they then?
They would have been in
Were
the St.
they?
Louis,
They would have been the St. Louis.
or possibly St. Charles.
Because there's a really, really old church
Right.
in Florissant, when they
St.
had the little
Ferdinand's.
church inside, the little building and little church inside the big church.
Well, I found a couple other 4th of Julys.
Okay.
The 1875, it says the glorious 4th was a quiet affair with the old St. Genevieve this year. She didn't celebrate worth a cent. The only excitement on hand outside of the regular Sunday's beer drinking was a picnic on Maxwell's Hill in the afternoon, in which a few kegs of beer were stowed away and an arm or 2 dislocated, and an illumination of the Southern Hotel at night. So, and then there was a couple of dresses by Augustus St. John and General Rozier, and the St. Genevieve Band enlivened the scene with some excellent music. So that was about it in 1875.
Now, at the top of Maxwell Hill, who owned that? I know that was a park at one
Yeah,
time.
I'm not sure exactly. We have a...
Was that an extension of that park that was Baumstart Park down on
You know,
Leahy Street?
I've always wanted to find Baumstart Park. There's Herzog Park, Sucre Park.
Baumstart Park is where Leahy and, or across the street from Mary Ann.
Yeah, that's what
That
I...
whole block, and I think back up in, it went further up, I believe.
Oh,
The only reason I know that is because John and Juanita lived behind it,
Mhm.
and they were telling me that one time.
yeah.
That
Well,
owned the drugstore, John
Oh.
Baumstart.
Oh, okay.
in
Oh,
18...
Juanita lived down the street from us.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
In 1876, it was a big deal. That was our centennial, and I thought I had brought a synopsis of that. But they had a parade with about 15 or 20 different groups that went in this parade on the 4th of July.
Oh, my goodness.
And it went on and on. They had girls that, George Washington and Lady Washington was there with their bodyguards, and Thomas Jefferson, somebody played Thomas Jefferson. The cornet band was the second one to lead the parade. They had people on foot, people in carriages, the GAR, fraternal organizations, the mayor, and city officials. So it was a big deal.
It was a big parade.
It was a big parade, it was a big day, and they had lots of speeches and picnics on Maxwell Hill. And then I came across one in 1887, and this one, the day literally started off with a bang. It was tradition to fire that cannon at 8 o'clock in the morning off of Maxwell Hill.
Oh, my gosh.
And in 1887, it blew up.
Oh, my gosh.
And a piece of the barrel grazed the shoulder of the cannoneer, who I think was Jesse Robbins, who owned the house next to mine. And another piece plowed a deep furrow in the ground, so they were very lucky. They did say it almost resulted in a tragedy, but it was overcome by the clinking of glasses soon after that, so I guess it was fun.
Didn't stop their drinking.
The parade was much smaller that year. Augustus St. John commented, "It must have been for the want of patriotism on the part of our citizens as the weather was good." Furman Rozier and Augustus St. John also gave orations, and a big bonfire was lit on the hill. But some people complained they couldn't see the bonfire on the south end of town. Back in 1952, they had fireworks and the band played just kind of like we do now. Then it was sponsored by the VFW, the Legion, the Chamber of Commerce, Mississippi Lime, and the Lions Club. And I think it cost $400 in 1952.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Where'd they shoot that one off at?
I think on Maxwell Hill.
On Maxwell.
Yep. So that's a little bit of history of the 4th of July. And, you know, we get so busy in our daily life, I think sometimes we forget about why we have this day off and whatever. And it's kind of like Veterans Day and Memorial Day. You gotta thank some people for doing that.
That's right.
Well, we don't have too much of any kind of celebration on the 4th of July, except that,
Yeah. Well, that's why we want to do something a little,
Yeah.
it's going to be just short and, you know, kind
it'd
of.
be kind of nice to go back to those parades.
Well, I remember even when the Jour de Fête started, they had parades, they had kids' parades, and,
Yeah,
oh my
Dog
Lord,
parade,
and animals, and people just, well, I think they're just so busy
Yeah,
that they just don't have time anymore.
Technology took over.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's more fun to sit and watch that silly tube
the idiot box, yes.
or play on the computer that I can't understand.
Well, again, just take a moment out. It's not going to take that long. Come down. We'd like to have people in costume. If you got an old French colonial costume, or Marianne, you come in your Halloween costume.
Oh, Well, we could get some of those that we used to
Revive,
have.
revive
All
that,
those
yeah.
outfits I got at home, yeah.
We used to have all those when we was room mother.
Oh, yeah.
We always went up on the holidays as room mothers, we was always dressed up, because I know you went as, what was that you went as that year at Thanksgiving? I went as Pocahontas.
That was one of the people in the parade, was Pocahontas.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got
In
me some,
18
I bought some braids,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I put my hair back, and I had them going down, and I had made me an Indian costume with the fringes on the bottom, and you were a pilgrim, weren't you?
I think,
I
yeah.
think so. But we used to be room mother, and we always believed in
I
dressing
think
up.
we were the first room mothers
The
that dressed up for their kids. And I got in quite a bit of trouble sometimes with my kids.
I went
Oh,
to
you're
a plant
embarrassing
in
me.
Pennsylvania Dutch country, and Halloween is a big deal up there. I guess it's because everything's so stringent, you know, but they like to put costumes on. So I go in the plant the first Halloween, and I'm starting to look around. Everybody's in costume out on my production line and everything. And I went to my doctor, and he's dressed in a clown outfit.
Oh, Lord.
We used to have so much fun dressing up because
People
we just
just
kind of
didn't
thought that
realize
was neat,
how
you
much
know,
fun you
for the
had.
kids.
Yeah.
And the kids enjoyed it. I think they had a ball,
Yeah, it was so much fun.
but we did. Every year. She was a funny one year.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember what I was.
That's the year I really got in trouble.
Yeah. I had a real
My
short
little-
dress on and a
My little
basket.
daughter
and all.
came home and she said, Mom, they're always making fun of you. And I said, why? What do you mean they're making fun of me? And she said, one of the girls said, your mom came into school dressed like an Easter bunny. And she said, I told her, no, she didn't. And she looks out on the clothesline.
And there's the Easter.
And there's the Easter bunny outfit blowing under the clothesline. 'Cause
My
it was
kids
so
do it,
wet from being sweaty.
Yeah.
And
My
I
kids
said,
always say,
"I'm
we just
sorry."
didn't go around the room. We just
I'm
stayed away.
sorry, I won't do it again.
So what'd you go as the next year?
Santa
No
Claus.
Easter bunny.
Ho, ho, ho,
Oh,
Yeah.
ho.
We did a lot of crazy things, but,
did we ever?
and I had several teachers come and said that when we were room mother, that was the best room mothers they'd ever had.
Because we got to do the same thing that the kids were doing. They were having fun, we were having fun.
We enjoyed it. I know I did. Kids didn't think too much about it because they said, my mother was there.
So are you guys gonna have stuff up in the park, like they had a couple years ago where?
The booths and things
No,
like that,
they're not
no.
doing that
They're not
anymore?
gonna do that.
So you're just gonna have the fireworks over on Leon's Field? Is
Right,
it?
So the band will play until
At-
dusk and then it'll be.
yeah, and they'll be at the desert. So,
Because I know we used to always sit on the hillside at the park.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
and watch the fireworks.
Oh, yeah. And the mosquitoes would eat you up.
No, not too bad.
Mhm.
I would have the street department put some of those spray up there and stuff, and it wasn't really bad. I didn't think so. Was it bad?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
bad, yeah.
just a reminder for everybody to be very careful with fireworks.
Oh,
A lot
yes.
of people get hurt every year on that.
Oh.
Drive safely.
That's why they put on a professional show, so you won't get hurt.
Exactly, because it's very dangerous. I know some of the stuff we did when we were kids.
Oh, I know.
Really bad.
Yeah.
Very lucky to be alive.
Yeah. I wasn't those bottle rocks, whatever, which way, but it's supposed to go.
So,
Well, I want to talk about this weekend a little bit. There's
Yes,
a lot of stuff
yes,
going on. You can
there
probably talk about the plein air portion of what's going on.
I will, and after you finish up.
Well,
that'd
I
be
was
fine.
I was kind of finished with the 4th of July, unless you have some questions or anything on that.
No, it's gonna start at 12 noon.
12 noon on the,
Because I looked through the paper and I couldn't see a sign on, when it was going to start.
Yeah, it says it. I
Does
think,
it?
Right in the first couple
I must have
paragraphs
missed it.
somewhere, yeah.
and again, it won't be that long, but bring your lawn chair down and be a part of it.
You just sit there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And talk your husband into taking you to one of the restaurants to eat,
Uh,
since
Might
it's
as
a
well.
holiday.
Yeah. They'll be crowded, no
Yeah.
doubt. They usually are.
Usually.
Well, this weekend is Fourth Friday Art Walk,
Right.
and also, have you ever been in the post office and looked up on the wall and saw that mural on the wall?
Oh, I love that.
Well, that was painted in 1942 by a young lady named Martil Schweig,
Yeah.
and I have always loved that mural, and it's a really different, you would think you'd see a French costumes like I have on of people doing the La Guillenée, but they're not. They're like 1930s, 1940s dressed people. And it got me interested in that, and so I started investigating what all this post office mural thing, and at the same time, in the early 30s, about 32, they started the art colony, and it went to about 41. Well, at least, I think, 8 of the people that were either instructors here or students ended up painting post office murals, and they painted 20 of them. So I'm going to give a little talk on Friday night at the Welcome Center from 6 to 7 about, most people think it's a WPA art program. It's really a New Deal art program, kind of the same time period, but it's not WPA. Kind of talk about that program and some of the other alphabet soup programs that the New Deal had for art, and then show pictures of the 20 murals that the artist from the St. Genevieve Art
That'll be
Gallery.
neat.
Yeah. There's,
I
in
saw
some
a
instances,
couple of them.
yeah, it's some remarkable similarities. Some remarkable similarities in all the post offices they're in. They all seem like cookie cutter.
Were they done by the same group of people?
Well, there were
Did
actually across the whole United States, I think they did 1,370 murals by about 850 artists. But the ones here in St. Genevieve, or associated with the art school, there was like 8 of them that did 20 of those 1,370. So, and some of them aren't too far away, and some are in South Dakota, Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma.
Now, who's taking care of them? Because I know that you have to be careful with these paintings.
Yeah, most of them are oil on canvas. There are some others, but a lot of them have disappeared out of post offices.
Oh,
When a
really?
post office got torn down. I haven't seen an inventory of how many are left, but there's still a pretty goodly number. There were also
Martil came.
sculptures
No.
done for post offices in that program.
Martil came, I don't remember what year it was, and cleaned it.
Mhm.
And you could go in and watch her cleaning it. She cleaned the whole mural all the way across.
We had an interview with her.
Yeah, well, they made a big production out
Yeah,
of it.
yeah, because
Because it's
I was in on that.
archived by Channel 98 or,
I think she was 27 when she painted that.
was she? Is that what her
And
age
she
was?
painted a couple other ones that I've got pictures of.
She was a nice lady.
Mhm. Could you
Her-
imagine, as a kid, she went with her mother to Cape Cod, the paintings
Right, wasn't
class,
it?
and
Yeah.
here, and she's around all these famous artists, and
Right.
it must have been a remarkable.
And then she married a scientist.
There's an interesting story about that too that I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, the little guy over in Chicago that lived by her, well, they lived in, it wasn't Chicago, it was outskirts of Chicago. Her next door neighbor did a interview with her, and he has since graduated from college, and that's what he does, is film making.
You
I
know,
talked to his mother, I guess it's probably about a year ago.
Yeah,
I
'cause she
talked
just
to his
died in
mother.
2013.
Right,
Yeah.
but I talked to this little fellow's mother, and she said that he had graduated, and he was getting out of college, or going, let's see, he needed documentaries, like people, so I think Sandra wrote to them and said that they had looked at what he did at Martil
Oh.
when she was here.
I'm trying to think,
He
is
wanted
she
that
the
for his-
one, is she the one that did the painting of the grave diggers? They used to, Well, if Women's
That's
Club
down.
has them, they're down at,
Yeah, at the Welcome
Yeah.
Center. And
Yeah.
it's going to be very interesting to compare those pictures, some of their pictures that they have in the Women's Club with these murals.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are that regionalism.
well, that was always my favorite, and it hung by my desk when Women's Club had, and it was the Grave Diggers, and that was my favorite. And I always said, you can hang that one right here by my desk. And they'd say, Mary Ann, and I said, well, how
I think one
appropriate.
of the paintings that the Women's Club had disappeared.
Yeah, I think there is, yeah.
One of them got lost in somebody's house.
Yeah, well, it's not my house.
Not mine either. I wasn't in the Women's
Is it-
Club, but, yeah.
Under your desk now?
No, it's
Oh.
not, it's not under my desk.
It just disappeared somewhere. That was in the stories that were told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this year, they're celebrating the legacy of the St. Genevieve art legacy, because this is the 80th anniversary of the Summer Art School, which started in 1934.
And
I-
Teresa's going to be talking also, I believe.
Fantastic. But, you know, these post office murals are kind of another style of legacy
yeah.
of that
Yes.
art colony.
Right.
So-
Yeah, that'll be very interesting.
So it's in an
Now,
air
that's
condi-
on Friday.
Friday from 6 to 7,
Seven.
and then you can go to the art walk. And
And
there's all
Teresa-
kinds of things going on Friday night with the,
Teresa's
we also
gonna
have
talk?
Bob Cuban and the Inmen.
Oh,
I saw
yeah.
that, yeah.
Oh, I remember when he'd come down for CYO dances and play, or on the Admiral.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it, no, that wasn't, was it one of his people that got killed in
Yes,
St.
his
Louis
drummer.
and put in the cistern? They didn't find him for years.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but you're right.
Yep.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yep, they killed him, put him down in the cistern.
The gangsters, huh?
I don't know. I don't remember who, but I remember him being put in the cistern because my kid sister and I were laughing. We said, wonder how many bodies Grandpa's got in his cistern. And my mom said, that's not even funny. We were just making a joke.
Can
I'm
you
beginning to
imagine?
worry. She likes bodies and grave diggers here now.
Hang them grave diggers up in my mind.
Well, I was in charge of the cemetery for how many years?
Okay.
Uh,
I don't know when Teresa's going to talk, but she's supposed to give a talk also. Do you know what time?
I had not heard that, so.
Oh, is she gonna be down there at the interpreters, at the Welcome Center too?
I do not know where she is. I just remember Mary saying that she
Yeah,
was
I-
going to.
I remember.
Mary, if you're listening to us, give us a call and tell us.
Yeah, tell us where she's going to be. And of course, they have a class in The Human Figure by Brian Haynes.
Oh.
If anybody
okay.
wants to sign up, there's probably a couple spots left. It's $75.
Where do they hold those at, Iris?
Pardon?
Do they hold them down at 109?
At 109. Yeah. That's the last one then. And I think there's I didn't bring the other paper, but there's a talk that night again, also a guest speaker that'll be talking. So everybody come out to the art walk. There'll be several of them open, and the art instructors, paintings are still hanging. That's a very nice show, and that's at 109 Main.
It's supposed to be pretty nice, isn't it, Friday?
It is, I think.
Good.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yay, yay, yay. Yeah. So, I don't know how to pronounce that. Do you know how to pronounce that? The Project Pioneer Families, Langlier, 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 Langlier.
Langier and Friends.
I know how to
Like,
say the next one.
Off. Yes, they can pick.
Pop.
Yes, you can get your books by calling Jean Pettis at 883-3925, and if you want to order T-shirts for either family, or I guess it's for both, isn't it? Universal. I guess that's probably Midwest, 483-2577 to order them. And then also Carol and Bruce Whitaker, I don't know if they have them hung yet. It's,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Carol Stanton, they donated 2 oils and a sketch of Reinhardt's to the city. So those will be at the Welcome Center. I don't know if they're hung yet, but that's really
I think
nice.
Sandra wants to do a Reinhardt show later in the year,
Do they? Yeah.
which would really be good. I mean,
That would.
yeah.
He's got some really nice, yeah.
Well, they
Really
left
nice
now,
people.
didn't they, to go back to Hawaii?
Yes, they went back to
Yeah.
Hawaii. They left last Thursday.
Where are they living at?
They live in Hawaii.
Oh, they do. They don't have that gallery down there anymore. Oh,
Now, you're talking
yeah,
about Charlie
I'm talking about
Reinhardt? No,
Charlie.
Charlie's still down there.
Yeah, but they went to Hawaii.
Carol and Bruce Whitaker.
Yeah, I didn't know they had it.
Oh, yeah, they've been there several years. They just come home and stay 3 or 4 months.
Oh, that's why.
They came home to go skiing and the weather didn't
That's why I didn't
cooperate,
realize
so
they
they
had
stayed
moved. I
here.
just figured they were still here because I saw them. I didn't realize they were gone and just vacationing here.
Yeah. Yep. And of course, Teresa is Carol's aunt. And she posed when she was 8 years old for the Summer School of Art, which is cool.
I think we do have one picture of a young girl being painted.
Do you really? Because they didn't think there was one around, so I'm glad there is
Well,
one.
I thought there was another one that I had seen.
Mim
that
Dempsey.
Mrs. Portel, the twins, she had a twin sister, I think she posed.
Oh, did she?
I think she told me that one time.
I'll be darned.
You never know when you're going to run into something
Right,
around
that was,
here.
wasn't that Mrs. Dunsey and her twin? Are they twins?
I'm not sure.
Elmo's, what?
No, she
Betty?
was a twin.
And Betty and
Betty and
Portel?
Stanley?
Was she a Portel?
No, no, no.
No,
No,
she's
Betty
married
was
to
a
Mr.
a
Portel.
Swint. Betty was a Swint. She
Oh,
was
she was
Stanley
a twin,
Swint's.
okay.
Stanley Swint's sister.
Sister,
Yeah.
okay.
'Cause
And then
it's-
who was Aileen's twin? I knew, but I forgot.
Who's twin?
Aileen Portel.
Well, I have no idea.
I used to know, but I forgot.
Well, one day
I'm getting
I,
old, so I can't remember too well anymore.
Join the crowd.
one day I was in the cemetery with Mickey and we were doing something on the restoration and this 3-generational family came in the gate and being nosy, we were kind of close to them and all of a sudden the grandfather, the eldest of the 3-generational family says, you know, I painted here back in the 30s and our
Oh.
radar went off. And so we got to talking about him, and he had a collection of Polaroid shots from the 1936, and he had come down from St. Louis as a 16 or 17-year-old
Oh, my goodness.
to the Summer School of Art. And so his son or grandson scanned them and sent us those
Isn't that
pictures.
wonderful?
And I
Yeah.
think that one with the little girl in it might be in that group, I'm not sure.
Well, that would
But
be,
it
I
had-
bet Teresa would love that.
It had
for
Joe
family,
Verst
too.
and Benton and Amy Schweig and Martial.
Oh,
and
my
yeah.
gosh. Isn't that something?
But I mean, you just, that's
So
what's.
what family was it? What-
It begins with Kimmy's or something like that. We had them down when we had there was something that we had on the art the Benton exhibit or something a few years ago. And I remember in the courtyard, he came down for that, very quite elderly. And I've got his name someplace, but it was just really neat to, to
Yeah,
hear
just
somebody
to
that
see
had
it,
been
yes.
here for
Been
that
here,
school.
Yeah, oh, my gosh. Yeah, because I think they were saying the other night that they didn't know where, they didn't think a picture of Teresa was around.
But they
Yeah,
had one in
painted.
Mim, didn't they? Mim Dempsey?
Well, she was another one painted. I don't know if they had a
Yeah.
picture of her or not.
I'm not sure who this was.
I'm
I
not
just remember
sure.
seeing one during the last few days when I
I'll be
was
darned.
researching.
Yeah, well, she would be an 8-year-old little girl.
Yeah.
It'd be
Isn't that
interesting to
something?
have one of those, to show for that.
Does Anna know you have all that?
I think I've given
You
her
gave it to
everything.
her.
Yeah, she's got a great collection. so,
Yes, she does. She's
yeah.
a very good historian.
Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised that she didn't say anything about having it.
I'll have to look at them again. I'll let you know.
Yeah, because when the lady from the Mercantile Library had to talk that night, Anna went over to her afterwards. She wouldn't say anything during it, but she went over and gave her some information after she finished talking.
Was that the one on Joe Jones or was it? just on the art colony?
It was on the Art Colony. Yeah, it's the one that we had the Friday night reception at that, when she talked about it.
It's, I mean, you just discover stuff in little bits here and there, and it's really fun to all of a sudden find something that you've been
Yeah,
looking
that's
for.
interesting. I was surprised, Anna, and she gave me an article one time where she and, I can't remember the boy, but they were working with Barney doing sculpture, and they did the angel in church. One of them got broken in 1985, and they did the angel, made one of the angel, it's the
Yeah.
one way over on the right side. Yeah. She gave me the article on that to read. I thought that was really interesting. Disappeared. The angel disappeared or got broken or something.
Oh.
Amazing.
One of those disappearing acts again. Okay,
How things
Yeah.
disappear.
we have a lot of them, yeah. I have a record that disappeared. I'm aggravated about it because it's one of Jim Aiken's first ones.
Oh my, you can't
One
find
little
that.
girl. Yeah, I don't know, it was there at the house, but somehow it's disappeared.
Oh my word.
My
And
mother
I
used to
just
call
found
them
it.
not poltergeists, but DLGs, darn little gremlins. When something would happen,
I think that's those footsteps I keep hearing all the time upstairs.
when something would happen, she'd line us 6 boys up and ask who did it, and nobody would.
Nobody did it.
There was that
Nobody
mysterious
did it.
little guy
The
standing over in
DLG,
the
the darn
corner
little gremlin.
that we don't know.
You have a lot of interesting information about the church too, don't you?
Yeah.
What about the Lutheran church? You got
Well, actually, it's
history
our
on
oldest,
that?
it's our oldest church building left in town here, because the Catholic Church was built and consecrated in 1880, and that's, the Lutheran Church was started about 1865 or 1869, I think. It's marked up on top, it says Holy Cross in German.
Yeah.
So it's the
And
oldest
there's-
church.
The oldest church building. The Catholic Church that's the 5th church, and it's the oldest parish in Missouri.
Right. And the Lutheran church has a lot of wooden statues and altars.
Well, it's got,
and
what's
things
it's
in it.
interesting about that altar, it's very unusual for a Lutheran church, but the story is that was an Italian marble church that was originally in a Catholic church in New Orleans or Texas, and then it went up to a Lutheran church in St. Louis, and then to one in Chester, and then came over here.
Oh, okay.
The statuary on that altar is very different than what you would normally see in a
It's a
Lutheran
very
church.
interesting church.
Isn't some of the statues are wooden, aren't they?
I never looked that close to those.
Yeah, I thought somebody had said they
There
were.
used to be some there.
That's been another fun thing to investigate, is the church history and
Yeah.
some of the little things that have happened. Some of them are very serious, and some of them can be funny, but could have been serious. I think one Christmas Eve, the lights went out.
I remember,
And they were trying to do the singing with candles, and one of them.
And it caught fire.
And it caught fire.
that wasn't funny.
That's what I'm saying. In retrospect, it kind of is,
And
but
it
I'm sure it
hasn't been
wasn't.
that many years ago. That was horrible.
When was that?
Oh, gosh. It was before
That was at Christmas?
yeah,
Yeah.
because I was in the choir then. That was before I started teaching preschool. So,
It was-
good Lord. I'm going to
About
say
50-something years ago.
probably
No, I think Al remembers it. I don't think Al's been here 50 years. I
No,
think.
he hasn't.
No.
close to it, I bet you. I
Well,
bet
it's
you
getting
it's close to it.
Yeah, it's getting pretty close to it if it's not.
But
85,
why I
probably
remember
84.
it is my nephew, they adopted him from over at El Salvador, and I guess Rick was probably 5 or 6 years old, so that's 28 years. No, it's longer than that. because he went to midnight mass, he wanted to go to midnight mass. And I said, we'll go up there. And it was so ungodly cold because we had to wear long underwear underneath our long outfits, you know, that we wore in the choir.
Had the power went out earlier in the day? Or?
Yeah, and then the power went out at night, and they brought candles around with little, and that didn't make sense, that's what scared me.
Was it the
when we
little
kept
paper
with
wrap?
little paper things underneath it to catch the wax. And I thought, this is an accident waiting to happen. And Rick thought that was the most beautiful mass he had ever been to. He was fascinated with it. And I said, it wasn't funny, Rick, and I don't want another mass like that because I don't want to see our church burn down and people burn alive in it. Oh.
So what caught fire?
They-
Somebody's paper?
Somebody turned the paper, they were singing and they turned the paper and the candle got too close and caught on fire. Oh. That's horrible.
I never did ever hear that before.
Oh.
Nope, didn't hear that story.
That's what's neat about St. Mary. We have lots of stories.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of untold stories, too.
And you just never know, you meet somebody and all of a sudden they'll say something, oh, I didn't know that, you know, just like you did in the cemetery, just out of the blue. That happened to me.
Like me, I went up to the rest home to take a cake up there because the women's club was baking cakes for him, and I took my cake in and gave it to her, and I got ready to leave, and there was this lady with a purse, and she was just sitting there. And so when I started to go out, she got up, and I held the door open for her.
And you weren't supposed to have.
And she walked out with me, and we stood outside and talked about how pretty it was outside and everything. And she took off. I didn't know any better. And all of a sudden, here comes all the nurses are running, and they said, Mrs. Otto, where is that lady that was with you? And I said, oh, I left her go. She walked on down the hill. She's going home. And she said, no, she was a patient. Oh, oh boy.
And you even told her goodbye.
I even told her goodbye. I was going to give her a ride, but she didn't want to ride because she said she lived just down the hill. She had a purse.
We yell.
So what kind of hat, what do you call that hat?
This is called a tricorn. Tri for three and corn for corners. And most people, when they see this kind of outfit, they say, oh, look, a pirate. But this is what...
But that's what they used to wear.
That's what they used to wear. A lot of people, pirates did wear them. Civilians wore them. Military people wore them. And it was just in the 1750s to 1810 or 20 was a very
Do
common.
you have
No,
knickers
it
on?
was just
They're called breeches.
They're
Yes.
knickers,
breeches. Breeches.
breeches, okay.
Breeches, yeah.
And these are the old style, which have a well-cut back end. They always make my rear look bad, I think.
Nobody says, you have a cute butt, Bob.
The other thing, a lot of times people here in St. James, both men and women, would wear a handkerchief on their head, tied like a turban or
Oh, yeah.
like a do-rag. Men also wore something called a toque, which is like a long stocking cap that hangs
Yes.
down.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, I remember seeing pictures of those.
I quit wearing mine. I was walking down the street at Christmas time one time with that on, and some little boy across the street yells, "Hey, look at that fat elf!" So,
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
That didn't give reason to quit.
Oh.
A fat elf.
A fat elf. Now, every time I look at you,
It's gonna be up here.
oh.
What color, that hat was tan though, wasn't it? Was that one tan that you wore?
well, I have a blue. My toque is blue. I also have a red one. Actually, we found that the red was, or blue was supposed to be the most popular color, but we also know they did red. Jacques Board, whose house is there on the corner, he had a merchant shop, and in 1800 he sold like 6 different colors of handkerchiefs. mouchoir, in French it's mouchoir, but one of them was mouchoir de Nîmes, and it was from the town of Nîmes in France, and that's where the word denim comes from. And because it was a kind of cloth, and there's mouchoir de Chalet, which is a famous red handkerchief of the French Revolution, mouchoir de Russe, or Russian, mouchoir de India, which was a madras. So they did have a variety of colors, but most of the time you see them in paintings with blue, like the one of Mrs. Shudo, and there was an artist in St. Louis that painted in about 1820, Maria Anna van Fools, and she painted a number of young girls, and they all had blue handkerchiefs on their head.
Well, we don't.
Yeah, that Indian play they had, where they ran through the woods, that guy had on a tan one.
I mean,
Remember that,
you
yeah.
could have different colors, and people out in the woods wore different outfits than if they were in town, and you had stuff you'd wear during the day, and on Sunday, people got dressed up, and
Yeah, they didn't do like they do now.
you went to church and you got dressed up,
Yes.
and the kids had to go to a ball to learn how to
Yes.
dance, and then the parents would go to a ball in the evening, and it was very, I mean, all levels of society went to these balls. It was not just the upper crust of St. Genevieve.
Yeah, I think back to my grandmother, if we would so much as think of wearing a pair of jeans or something when girls started wearing jeans to church, oh my, that was a mortal sin.
Well, you didn't dress like that.
You dressed and you put a little thing on your head, and you did not go into church without a veil or a hat on.
Because I felt very out of place when I moved here because we always had to dress and we always wore a hat to church.
Oh, yes.
And
Oh,
the
yes.
first time I wore a hat to church, I got made fun of.
Oh, yeah, they looked at you and,
I
What do you
always
do?
wore a hat to church.
But
don't
I,
remember
that was the thing we did. We dressed, we never had slacks, it was always a dress.
oh, yeah.
Well, I love looking
I-
at
yeah,
baseball
I even
pictures
worked in
from
dresses.
the 30s and 40s, you know. People would go to the ball game and they had to have a suit on, a fedora. to go to the ball game.
Or people getting on airplanes,
Yep.
they were
Yeah,
always
dressed
dressed.
up.
I
And
never
now
wore
they-
slacks.
Well, service was a
Yeah.
little better back then on airplanes.
Yeah,
But boy, some of these outfits, I just love
Oh.
sitting and watching people, and I think, somebody ought to beat you.
I'm going to sit behind you. I'm not going to sit in front of you because you're watching.
You'll be watching, you shall be watching
Somebody
you all
ought to
the time.
beat you for the way you're dressed. I wouldn't even take garbage out looking like that.
I agree with you.
Oh, man.
I would not walk in that door at church with some of the clothes that some
Oh.
of these people wear that are just, oh my Lord. They belong out on the beach.
Well, they say it isn't what you wear.
Yeah, God doesn't care what you wear as long
No.
as you're in church.
But to
That's what
me,
they say
it's,
for an excuse.
but
But
still,
God
I
hasn't
think you
told me
should,
that yet, so.
I still think you should show respect in church.
I think it looks really nice when people, I think the Presbyterian ladies look so nice when they go out because they always still dress up.
Oh, yes, yes.
You
Yes.
can always pick them, and when you go to St. Louis or something, you can always tell when all the Baptist church is let out.
Yes.
Because they're all dressed up with their hats and their nice clothes and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
I used to love to wear hats.
Well, we used to have, you look at the old newspapers of the millinery shops, the
Oh,
hat
yeah.
shops that were here.
You know, I was thinking that if we didn't have anybody as a guest tonight, of all the places in town that there were in the 50s, there were like 7 grocery stores,
Oh, I
I have-
know
and
it.
there were 3 places to buy clothing.
And
or 4.
25 taverns,
Oh, yeah, a tavern on every corner, yeah. that-
2 of them
yeah.
sometimes.
And you know what, we really had a nice town.
We did.
Back then. Of course, nobody had 2 or 3 cars like they got now. Everybody worked pretty much around here. You know,
Well, it's
they-
kind of interesting, you know, our population right now is the same as it was in
Exactly, my
1950.
husband always says that. It's
But
never
the
grown.
difference is back then, everybody had 5 or 6 kids.
Right,
I mean, some of my friends grew up out on Lynn Drive and was
Right,
that
yeah.
Scott? I mean, there were 150 kids on that street.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you know,
And even when I was young, those streets didn't even exist. It was the north end of town.
Well,
Mostly, that was country out there. That was
we had
out
a
in
little
the
boy
country.
coming around
Yeah.
about a month ago, I guess, and he was checking on people putting new windows in their buildings and stuff. And he said, do you have a few minutes? And he was about, oh, I'd say maybe 23, 24 years old. I don't think he could have been much older than that. And he said, can you tell me about that service station down the street from you? And I said, you're right, it was a service station. And I said, and then right across the street was a grocery store. And then on the other corner was another grocery store. And then down on the other end of the block was another grocery store. And he just stood there and looked at me, and he said, there were 3 grocery stores in
Yeah, one on
a
one
block?
corner.
And I said, yeah. And he said,
Now, that one on the corner here wasn't a
Were
grocery.
you talking
Jerry.
about Colliers? or-
There was Jerry's. Oh, you're
Jerry's.
talking about Jerry's and Collier's.
and Colliers, and then
Fritzy's.
Hooks.
Yeah.
or-
Fritzy's.
Yeah.
Fritzy's.
It was Fritzy's then, yeah.
Was the creamery still?
And the creamery was closed, but the building was, and then Blues Barber Shop.
Was there, yeah. And
And,
then Klein's had a donut shop there.
Yeah, and then they had a little side gambling shop there.
For a while, yeah. And Tom had his first service station there, Tommy Graff.
Did he?
Yep,
Okay.
that's who had the service
And
station.
Bowman had it then later.
Well, Bowman owned it, but
Oh,
Tommy
okay.
worked for him.
And the
I
brewery.
think that's how it
And
was.
then last Friday, the people that are buying the brewery came and introduced themselves to me
Oh, did they?
up at the show, up at the PAC.
Oh, how neat.
And he said, are you the Mrs. Otto that lives next door to the tavern? And I said, yes. And he said, well, we're your neighbor. And I said, my neighbor, who sold their house down? He said, no, the brewery. And I said, oh, well, good, I'm glad to meet you. He said, so do you like the idea? And I said, I love the idea. Anything that'll clean up over in our end of town, I love it.
Is
Well,
nice.
yeah.
That used to be the
That'd be great.
nicest neighborhood.
Oh, I know.
Oh, yeah.
When
I
we
lived down
moved
that
in there, oh
neighborhood.
my God, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
That was a great neighborhood.
We had the
Oh.
Wieners and the Hagens and the Grieshabers
Yeah.
and the Baumstards and the Childers and the
Jokers,
Browns and
Jokerses,
where were the
Holidays.
Jokers at?
joke,
They weren't there when I was
Oh,
there, the Jokers and
okay.
Holidays.
You were talking about Baumstark Park. Was it behind where the grocery store is?
Actually, I think that whole area there on that corner was Baumstark Park,
Okay.
where I'm pretty sure that's what John's wife told me. I was
I
a
figured
little
if there
girl.
was one
but I'm
called
pretty-
Herzog's Park too, and I didn't know.
You know, I bet that's probably,
Is it that park that's over by 4th Street, or?
I bet that's more up on that hill up there where Herzog, you know, like that woods and all
oh,
that
yeah,
stuff. I
it
bet.
was, it was back in there. That's where
And it could have
Bob
went down.
Beckerman's,
Could have went down maybe to the woods, because we used to play in that woods.
Where were you
Herzog.
talking about? Oh, Herzog up, where
Yeah,
the
up above, and
construction-
then back in there was where Lee and Lee Barwick, you know, and then Elaine Belovich, and
Yeah,
all back in
that was
there.
all back in there.
I bet that's where the
Joe
Herzog
Shank.
was at.
Because I've been looking to figure out where those places are. There was one called Suker Park for a while too.
Who?
Suker Park?
Suker.
Yeah.
Now, where did they live?
The blind
Suker.
girls.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think where they lived at. Where'd they
Well,
live?
he lived on the corner of
Over
like
here
3rd
on
and
3rd Street,
On 3rd
Jefferson.
Street.
Yeah.
Third and Jefferson.
I just remember him.
Well, one thing I forgot to mention, in 1876, that big parade, they ended up going to the fairgrounds.
But were the fairgrounds out here?
No,
No.
the fairgrounds were down on the big field.
Oh, you're kidding.
Really?
And they had a racetrack, they had a pagoda. It was built by the St. Genevieve County Agricultural and Mechanical
Oh, my
Society.
goodness, isn't
Well,
that
I'll be.
interesting?
Yeah, and they have a whole list of the premiums that, for the fair, and it's not much more today than it was in 1876.
I was gonna
Oh, my
say,
word.
they
Isn't
always
that
said
something?
about out here in Rozier. didn't
Rozier
they?
Oh,
Park.
that was Rozier
Rozier.
Park.
That
yeah.
was when I was a kid,
Yeah.
it was out there.
Yeah.
That only closed down when I graduated, after I graduated from high
But
school.
there was
They used to
the
play
very
ball
first,
and everything.
the
out
very
there.
first one was down on the big field.
I'll be
Well,
there.
I'll be.
Isn't that something? Yeah, the parish picnics and everything used to be out in Rozier Park.
Oh,
There was a big
And
pavilion
we had
out there.
the egg, the Lions Club egg on DuPont Hill here.
Yes, yes, they had that egg hunt every year.
Oh, for Easter?
Uh-huh. They'd go up and, who did that?
That
Was that
Must have been Lions Club, I
Lions
think.
Club? They
yeah.
would hide eggs everywhere, just lay them out everywhere. And then the kids, the whole town would go there picking up Easter eggs.
What's DuPont Hill? Now I'm,
Right down there where they put all the signs up.
Yeah, right after you
By
cross
the
the
tracks.
tracks.
oh,
Up
okay,
on
that's
the right,
DuPont Hill.
yeah.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, a lot of places that have, and then the vets, the street where you go up to Vets Hall, that,
Memorial Drive.
yeah, Memorial Drive, that used to be an alley when I was a kid. It was like real narrow. We used to build bonfires up at the top of it in the wintertime and lay down it, down the street.
Well, our streets have had different names even downtown. They used to go, you know, how we have Second and Third going north and south. They used to go east and west. And they got changed once. And then one time the council decided to call them Lynn and Audubon and stuff, and that lasted about 3 weeks. And they
Oh,
changed
my
it back.
gosh.
I guess Third Street was, or Second was called Little Rock Street because the road to Little Rock.
Yeah, I don't remember all that.
Yeah, that was before our time.
Oh, okay.
History
Yeah, I
is
remember
interesting.
when down on Little Rock Road, there were a lot of cabins where some really
I
poor
remember
people
those
lived down there.
houses.
They built, I
Yeah.
mean, they were built out of
In that,
whatever they could
Thing.
get to build them. Where Bowman's owned that
Yeah.
little thing in there.
in that little.
Yeah,
I
they
call
were
it
the nicest
rock.
people down there.
Is that where Ron Inman had his trailer parked there
No.
for a
No,
while?
he was further
Oh.
down.
He
I
was
think,
further down.
by
Yeah,
the
this
bay.
is up further, sort of like Brenda Bosler's.
Oh, back in there.
Yeah.
Down.
I remember
And there was a
that.
natural spring there. And there, I can remember them coming into Rozier's when I was in high school. I worked there when I was sophomore, I guess, junior. Junior and senior in high school, I worked there. And they would come in and buy their kids clothes and pay like 50 cents a week or 25 cents a week because, well, wages back then were hardly nothing,
Yeah.
and they didn't have any money anyway, to buy their kids clothes and shoes and stuff, and they would make payments on it. They were really nice people, I really.
I remember
like
those
them.
houses back in there. There's quite a few.
That
of
was
them.
only, I think they only tore those down in the 60s, where people moved out of them.
Well, this has been a good what's happening then or in the past
Yeah.
as opposed to what's happening now.
Well, if you all like the subject tonight, you can call us and we would be glad to repeat it. Our phone, we don't
Yeah, and if
have our
any of
phone
you
work.
have memories you want to share, just call us and come be on the show, and you can talk and talk and talk. Some of you guys that are on, what's, on Facebook, on what's happening in St. Genevieve, are
Do you remember when?
do you remember when in
Steve
St.
Fleeg,
Genevieve?
I think
Yeah,
is the.
yeah, Steve Fleeg was one of them,
Yeah.
and so, you guys ought to come on the show. Do they work here in town, or?
I don't know, I love listening to
Yeah,
some
I
of
like
those
to go in
things,
there and read all that
looking at it.
stuff, yeah,
That would be interesting to have those.
yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
anybody's got any neat things about St. Gen, give us a buzz. and
Even
come
old
on.
things.
And thank you, Robert, for being on our
It's always
show.
a
Yes, we
pleasure.
appreciate it, yeah.
Kind of let me ramble, so that's.
Well, we always like your talks because you have so much information in your head, yeah.
Yes.
It's
then-
not empty like,
And then it goes in mine, and it gets all screwed up.
goes in one ear and out the other.
And like tomorrow, I'll say, what are you talking about?
Linda has a problem, though. She says I can remember all the way back to Adam and Eve, but I can't remember what she told me 5 minutes ago.
Oh, yeah, well,
That's
She's
a
a
man
wait a
thing.
minute, that is selective hearing of a husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband can't hear me either, but he can hear the scanner in the kitchen when they're whispering. It
Oh, I
turns the
know.
television down so low, I can't
Oh,
even
yeah.
hear it.
Couldn't do without us, though.
That's right,
Yeah,
and
you're
you guys
right.
couldn't do without us?
That's right.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
And everybody have a safe 4th of July.
Right, and be sure to go downtown.
Yes,
noon,
and watch them. put on their performance and make it a good 4th of July.
Right.
Make it
And
an
come
old
to the
timer.
Art Walk on Friday night, and Bob's Talk at
And you can
6.
listen to Bob talk about the post office.
That'll be very interesting, so. Good night, everyone out there.
Thank
It
you
was
all.
nice being with you tonight, so.
Channel 7 and 98 TV and web broadcasting are made possible through contributions and donations from viewers like you. Thank you for your support.